Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, I'm pleased to have the head coach of the Seymour boys basketball program, Coach Carrafiello. Coach, it's great to be able to have you on, man.
No, I appreciate you having me on, Chris. Looking forward to it.
I think first and foremost, before we go into the Seymour program and so on, how's everything with you and your family?
Everything's going well. Well as can be expected. Still doing a lot of the quarantining thing, but everyone's doing okay. I'm hopefully the same for you guys.
It's rough. I mean, my girlfriend's a teacher in Waterbury, so she's had to deal with a lot of kind of, in some ways, the stresses that the coaches have had as far as, are we going to play tomorrow? Is there going to be a case, as far as with that? But so far, everything's been okay. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, that's my twins actually my twins are happy because they got to start playing again. So they're in 8th grade and they got to start playing some travel basketball.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, they'll be Wildcats next year. So,
oh boy, I mean, hey. The Wildcats right now are already 2-0, but we'll get to that in a little bit, Coach.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go back a little bit to last year because I know when I had your game against Crosby, I know Perkins was out with an injury,
right.
And there were also a couple players kind of maybe entering the low point as far as not playing the best basketball.
Yeah, we were missing 3 starters that game, actually. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So, and when I talked with you, you still were very upbeat, and you said if a couple of things can go our way, and if we can hit our stride, then I think we have a chance to be able to do something. Well, you won 4 of your last 5 games in order to get to the tournament. So kind of just take me into that season, which there was a lot of turmoil as far as just injuries and such, but you guys were able to band together.
Yeah, we lost one of our captains really early on, DJ Miller. And we only had, out of the 20 regular season games, 2 times we had our complete team. So, I mean, yeah, they went through, you always hear coaches say that, I'm glad proud of my team for going through so much adversity, but we literally went through a bunch of adversity last year. But when we saw you, that was our real low point. Actually, we had lost three starters. Deanna was in the middle of his 3 games where he was hurt. And then Crosby just absolutely pounded us. They're a great team. The next week, we kind of started getting guys healthy and getting back into it. And like you said, we needed to win our last 3, because we had some tough, we had beaten Woodland in a close game at home. And then we played, I think it was Waterbury Career after that, and had them on the ropes. We were up the whole game, well-coached team that they are. And then they beat us by 3, I believe, in the closing minutes. So now we were left to having to win our last 3. At Derby was one, another hard-fought battle. I think we won by like 5 or 6 points. We had senior night against Caner Tech. We kind of cruised in the second half of that one, and then cruised in the second half of East Haven. We just, we started playing our best ball, and we're healthy down the stretch.
How was it as far as, because again, conversations I've had with you prior to that, before that big run at the end, you were still very positive, and I feel like the players kind of fed off that, knowing that if we can just take things, not looking too far ahead, just taking care of business at the present game against Derby, against Woodland, we just do our job, then the rest will take care of itself.
No, they really did. They really bought in. I mean, coaches are just there to guide the youth, but they 100% bought in. And we were stuck with a really, really difficult early part of the schedule. We played Holy Cross first game. We lost in overtime. We played Sacred Heart the second game. We lost by like 10. We had to go to Torrington. We lost a close game there at 5 points. Then we played Kennedy. We lost a close game there in the closing minutes. So, I mean, it was a tough stretch. So we had the first 4 games. And even then, they were still positive. They knew, we had a bunch of games that we could win and compete, on the schedule. And so, like I said, it's just a credit to them. They really they bought in, and they never, you can have a team that starts 0-4 and that can snowball to being, a 4-16 season. But it didn't. They kept their heads up. They knew we were going to win games, and that's just a credit to our leadership last year with the seniors that we lost too, like a Mataskowski or a Drew Kapedia, those kind of guys that, deferred to Dion offensively, but also gave big time leadership roles in their senior years.
I think, though, in some ways, if you look at, like you mentioned, an 0-4 team could easily go 4-16. It can snowball. But I feel like kind of like you look at a team that could be like a couple years ago, the Packers, when they lost to the Niners, they lost 3 games, but they felt like, to me, they were more of a 9-win team, 8-win team.
Right.
I Seymour, going back to last year, you lose in overtime to Holy Cross, you lose by 10 to Sacred Heart. Those are, and coaches could, agree or disagree with me here, but I feel like those are good losses because you're in games until the last second. And if a couple things could just go your way, maybe things go as what happened towards the end of the season, where you go off 4 out of the last 5.
Right. No, absolutely. They expected to win that game. The opening night against Holy Cross, they were, they were really upset, which they should be. They expected to win. Sometimes you'll have a team where, we fought hard and, we played against a good team and we came up short. But no, they had that, but at the same time, they wanted to win and expected to win the game. So yeah, that also, like we said, 0-4 can snowball, but they knew that they weren't an 0-4 team, that they were at some point we're going to put it together. Like I said, I think the biggest thing was the injuries. That was where they maybe started doubting a little bit. We go to Oxford, we lose Drew Capati, he doesn't play in that game. Like I said, we had Dion out for a couple of games, so that's where they could have lost it a little bit. Not so much the losses themselves, but knowing that our personnel was not around. But like I said, guys, next man up. We had contributions from our juniors last year, both the Harmelings, Chris Sierra, who I'm sure we'll get to talk to in a little bit, but those kids just stepped up last year.
And speaking of the kids that stepped up, I mean, looking back on, I mean, I know you can never predict the future, but just thinking about all of the injuries. I mean, you mentioned about Perkins and so on, and now seeing what some of the players who were young last year are doing this year. Again, when I've looked at the Twitter handle of the Seymour Wildcats and I just see how much contributions are coming from different guys other than Perkins, who I expect to put up 30 a night, it doesn't matter who he's playing against,
right.
But I just keep thinking of the amount of reps that they got last year when things were looking bad for Seymour. Because if they don't get those reps, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Coach, but if they don't get those reps, I don't know if they put up the same amount, if they reach that ceiling that they're at right now.
Right. No, I mean, you're 100% right. Our depth last year was tested, and it came out with the kids that, we didn't really plan on using as much as we did, ended up playing a lot. So now our depth is really good this year. I mean, because of that, like you just said, now I consider us to have 8 starters on our team, so I mean, that's, we had a kid who hasn't played yet, who's coming back now. It's supposed to be tonight, but he'll be back tomorrow. Chris Sierra, who I mentioned before, who had, he's been playing varsity minutes since he was a sophomore. So that's another piece that's getting added back to the mix.
8 starters. I mean, typically if you have 6 plus another guy off the bench who you can count on, that's considered a lengthy bench. If you have 8 plus a little bit more, I mean, right. Imagine, I hate to say this, but imagine if this was a normal year where the state tournament could be involved. The Wildcats could be a very dangerous team going into the tournament if you were to get that far.
Trust me, I think about it all the time. That this was, it kind of stinks for these kids, and myself, and selfishly a little bit, that we don't have a state tournament this year where, I think we have a pretty decent team on our hands this year.
But you do have an NVL tournament, and if things can work in the way of still being able to do at that point, I know the COVID-19 metrics and other things have to work in place, but if things continue, I saw the numbers are going down. If they keep doing that and there is a tournament, I mean, I know it's not the CIC, state tournament by any means, but it's still a tournament. And you know what? The games are going to be played, and I feel like the kids will be as competitive because I know everybody gets in.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. I mean, our ultimate goal this year was to win our division, because they're still going to have the division titles and all that. So that's goal number 1. And obviously goal number 2 is compete and advance as far as we can in the NVL tournament. It's going to be interesting. It's going to look a little bit like a Big East tournament or something like that. We even have to, I'm on the committee to, at the end of the regular season, to kind of pick the pairings. If, let's say, all of our teams can't get 12 games in, then we're going to go to like a seeding type thing where we kind of rank the teams. So it's going to be a fun thing. I hope we get there, because I'm looking forward to that as well.
I would like to see a matchup. If Seymour continues on playing this well, I'd love to see them go up against St. Paul again, and see that matchup, or a Naugatuck, a Sacred Heart. I feel like, again, I haven't seen Seymour play yet, but I'd love to be able to see the amount of talent that I can imagine. I saw him last year, but I know it's a lot better this year.
No, all the kids have improved. I mean, as for St. Paul, we actually do play them again. We go to St. Paul in a couple weeks. But yeah, these kids, you have, Dion is like you said, he's Dion. He's improved as well, without a doubt, has improved. But then you have like a Kyle Harmeling, who was our point guard last year, who was all copper, who in the first 2 games has had 18 points and then 15 points and really hasn't shot the ball much. They're doing this just really effectively from the floor. I think we're shooting like 58-60% as a team. But he's a kid that could be a leading scorer on another team. So it's good to see. It's good to see all these kids come back, be able to get something, because we really do have not only a talented team, but they're just a great group of kids. They're just a great group of kids.
Now, at the end of last year, I know that, as far as, you didn't get as far as you wanted to in the D3
Yep.
tournament, but, I saw what whoever tweeted on the Seymour Wildcats Twitter handle about how positive and how upbeat they were, and how, the game against, I think it was St. Joe's, am I right?
St. Joe, yeah.
Okay. How competitive, and that game was a lot closer than I think a lot of people thought. I knew it was going to be close, but a lot of people thought otherwise. But I just feel like that positive momentum, even in the loss against St. Joe's, coach, carried on into what was a very tumultuous offseason, and then even what is now a 2-0 start for the Seymour Wildcats.
Yeah, I mean, that just to be in that situation, a lot of kids didn't get the chance to play in that game. You know what I mean? That the next day was when the tournaments were shut down. So, I mean, we lost to St. Joe's. It was a battle. It was like 9-10 points or something like that. It was a close game. And that's a very tough place to play, as I'm sure you're aware. And, just to get that experience for the kids to be in that environment, and all the other, and take nothing away from the environments in the NBL, there's a lot of tough places to play there, obviously. And I think our gym is kind of become that as well. Tight gyms, something like that. I don't think many teams like to come and play in that little bandbox Seymour High School gym that we have. But, playing in that St. Joe's game, just the intensity level of a state tournament game, a couple of them were there with their freshman years. But then like for Dion, his sophomore year, we didn't make the tournament. Then his junior year, we made it again. So, I mean, that definitely carried over into this year, where this is a group where, like, it seems like really nothing really phases them, and that's a good thing. They don't get too high. They don't get too low. They just play, and we preach to play, all 48 minutes. You can't get too, I'm sorry, all 32 minutes in high school, but you can't get too high. You can't get too low. You can't let the next play lead to another bad play. And I've had teams in the past where it has snowballed, one turnover leads to 3 or 4, but this team just kind of even keel. And it is a little bit of like what you said, that, playing that game last year, playing in other big games, and just having kids that are basketball minded kids that just really don't let things affect them one way or the other.
I think it helps, though, too, Coach, that the way the team is that Perkins, to me, I think is in some ways kind of the perfect player, looking at kind of what you need going forward, because he's not a guy that, in my opinion, is a bullhog. I've seen him spray the ball around, give it to different guys. If he's got a shot, or if he feels like he can score, oh yeah, he's definitely going to score. I mean, more often than not, he will. But just in the game film that I watched last year, he will pass the ball and allow other touches, which I think allows other players to get confident early in a game. And then late, if you need them to score, they have that confidence from earlier.
Yeah, he's another point guard on the court. I mean, his sophomore year, we had to talk a little bit about getting the other players involved, and I think he felt a lot of the scoring burden his sophomore year. He averaged 22 a game his sophomore year. We had a bunch of injuries that year. Our captain, Ian Sadik, went down. He missed half the season, or else we would have made the state tournament that year, I really believe. But so he took a lot of the offensive burden, a lot of the shot making on his, he felt like he needed to do that. His last year, he became more of a scoring playmaker, like speaking to what you just said. I mean, the last game of the year, he was in foul trouble. He had 7 points, and we still won by like 25 points. I mean, but he was distributing the ball, things like that. So he's become a very good playmaker, not just a scorer.
He made a shot against Kennedy last year at the Jack Taglia Gymnasium, and it was like a fadeaway shot on the camera. I didn't notice it till after, because I watch all the games I broadcast, and he was laughing, and I'm like this kid makes it look so easy.
Oh yeah, he does. He does, and that's just the kind of kid he is too. Like, I was joking with him on the bench yesterday, or 2 days ago when we played Derby, and he just always got a smile on his face. He never says anything bad to anyone. He's just a good kid, and the kids feed off. Our kids feed off that. He's like I had said to the Republican when they did a story on the other day, that he's so well respected by his teammates, and everybody in Seymour. So it's just good to have that when you have a kid that's as good as he is, but also has a great attitude as well.
Now, were there other players that during the offseason, and what was at some point, I think a lot of people thought that basketball may not even happen because of the metrics and such at the time. Were there other players, because I'm sure Dion was a part of it, but was there other players involved to try to make sure everybody was on the same page and focused just in case if there was a season?
Yeah, we have three, like our captains were involved in that. Dion, who I already obviously we've spoken about. Kyle, I've spoken about. The other captain that we have is Joe Orlando, who in that run that you were talking about last year, if it wasn't for him and the numbers he put up, he wasn't playing a ton in the beginning of the year. And then he averaged a double-double like the last 8 games of the year. So he was really, I mean, there's Dion, there's Kyle, there's kids we talked about, but he was the reason we made the tournament. Joe Orlando, the minutes he gave us and the production he gave us at the end of the year. Another kid, just a great kid. He's that kind of leader that not only vocally, but also with the way he plays 100% all the time. He kind of kept the kids going, kids, we had text groups and everything. We were all hopeful. And then there was kind of a light at the end of the tunnel when, I think it was like October area when they started coming out with dates that maybe we'll start and all that. I just in the back of my mind was hoping that it wasn't kind of like what they did to football, where they kind of strung them along a little bit. And I get it, like, it is what it is, and then they just ultimately canceled on them. I was just hoping that didn't happen, obviously.
Looking at kind of the season now, you've played a couple games. Going into that, did you think that you would see the amount of production that you have? I mean, each game, well, there's only been 2, but you've had multiple players every game in double figures. You've had multiple guys with double doubles. You've had players with 10 plus rebounds. It's like video game numbers when you see that.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not surprised. I mean, like we talked about, these kids have been in the program for a couple of years now. A lot of them have had a lot of varsity minutes. We had 4 starters coming back basically. So I can't say I'm surprised. I am a little bit surprised on how much some of the kids have improved when there really wasn't an off season. You know what I mean? Like we didn't get to play in any summer leagues, we didn't get to play any spring leagues, anything like that. So, I mean, they all still came in pretty much in shape and definitely better. I always tell them you can't drop the ball in March and then pick it back up in November again and expect, to get better because we have multi-sport athletes, so it's a little bit more difficult. But no, I can't say I'm surprised. I am, encouraged with only 2 games and seeing the numbers that we're putting up, but, got to keep that consistency going.
I think, and you mentioned about Seymour and the amount of athletes and how they play multiple sports. The Harmeling brothers, play football. They're very good at that. You've had multiple players in your program who play baseball, who play, play football and such. I feel like the fact that over the last couple of years, you've seen the improvement, maybe, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Coach, but I think the amount of respect to you that they are going out and making sure that they are basketball shape or even just basketball ready going into the season, knowing that they play other sports. You know what I mean?
No, yeah. I mean, and I appreciate that. I appreciate them. And a couple of them are like, I would consider like there's, basketball first kids, there's football first kids that play other things. So we do have a lot of this year basketball first kids, like Kyle Harmeling, obviously Dion, that's all he plays. Kyle was going to play football this year, but he hadn't played until his senior year. So we do have kids that I consider basketball first. So it's just kind of in them. So you knew they were going to stick with it. But yeah, then you also do have the kids that are football first. Like I would consider, I love him. Kevin Harmeling is going to play college football. So he's probably a football first kid, but always came to basketball when he needed to, did everything he needed to do. And he's been starting now for basically 2 years. So, I mean, then you have Chris Sierra, who soccer and basketball are probably pretty much similar to him, but he was always there. Alex Okula is a kid off the bench. Caleb Nemo-Safa, Jake Chacho was an outstanding baseball player. And he, first game against St. Paul, he had 15 points. Caden Drezick is, going to be an all-league quarterback, by the time next year rolls around, but he's also plays AAU all summer, so, I mean, it's time consuming for them, I'm sure, but they don't really slack, I'll say for a better word, in either other sports that they play, or even 3, some of them.
Looking at the way that you're running your team this year, have you had to change anything from your first year until now, as far as either from the coaching side or maybe the kind of players that you're trying to attract to the program, so that way you can compete, year in and year out?
So my first year or with these guys, my first year with these guys, like my first year 18 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you're coaching at the high school level, it's not like college or the pros where you can bring in the kind of kids that you want to run your system. Like I would love to go up and down the court and press and run all, every game, but there's years that you can't do that. You know what I mean? So you have to adapt to the talent that you have. This is one of the groups that we can do that, where we have a lot of speed, quickness, get up and down the court. We want to get easy baskets, things like that. So I wouldn't say that we've changed anything since year one. I think it's just constantly changing. You have to look at your team and say, all right, this is more of a half court team. We're going to have to be able to score in the half court, as opposed to, this team's going to go up and down the court. They can score in a half court, a full court, like the team I have now. We can score in an up and down game. You play half court, you can score in a half court game. So we don't, I wouldn't say we have to change too much. I've had other teams that were, we don't have a lot of size this year. I've had teams that have had big players. So then we're trying to run things that are post plays, things like that, go in and out with the post guy first. This particular team for the last couple of years, we've done a lot of, 4 or 5 out on offense where it's offensive, perimeter based offense, drive and kick, those kind of things. So things are going to change depending on the talent you have. Like I said, colleges, they can run their program the way they want to run it every year, but it's a little different in high school.
Have you noticed anything as far as the game changing? Because I know way back when it used to be the bigs. They were, Shaq. Yeah. We can just go down the line. Dwight Howard when he was with the Magic and so on and so forth. Now the game is being spaced out more. 3-point line, half court. I mean, these kids are seeing Doncic and Trae Young and Curry and Lillard and on and on and on. So has that been something that you've been more open to, or is it something where, I don't want to say it bothers you, but when you see something like that, it's like, well, there's other ways you can score other than shooting from half court.
Yeah, no. I think that has definitely still even made the translation to the high school game where it's so much of a 3-point game now. Even the bigs have to be able to shoot. I mean, the all-league player there, Hinton from Naugatuck, he steps out and hits threes. He's a big kid. All our bigs can shoot a little bit because it just draws the defense out. Now, I don't want us to shoot too many threes, and I've been proud of them this year. The other day we had 58 points in the paint or something, some crazy number where we're just going to the basket. We only took 10 threes, and we got a bunch of guys that can shoot, but there's going to be nights when that shot's not falling. So we have to be able to shoot both ways. Then you have a team like Derby who's lights out from outside. We played them the other night. They took 32 threes and made 10 or 11 of them. So that's their game. And that's, and they're good at it. But so it's definitely translating into the high school area where it's way more perimeter oriented. No matter if you're 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 guys, they're all going to be able to shoot.
Scoring in the paint, though, kind of like in football where the running game you can bring anywhere. If it's raining, if it's sunny, it doesn't matter. You can carry that. 3-point shooting to me is hot or cold. If you live by the 3, die by the 3, more often than not, if you have a couple guys cold, it's going to be rough to be able to score. But like you alluded to, getting 50 plus points in the paint, that is something that is, if you're facing a team that has like a Connor Tierney or Sacred Heart, or if you have a couple teams that have bigs that can compete with that, well, there's not a lot of programs even outside the NBL, as far as in Connecticut itself, that have the necessary bigs to be able to be in that paint long enough to stop that. So I think scoring in the paint like that can be very successful, even if you guys are cold from the, the left elbow, the right elbow, or from the 3-point line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's going to be, like I said before, there's going to be days where, your shot's just not falling. So you have to be able to create other offense, and we have guys that can do that. But even if we, didn't have as many guys that like to go to the basket, we would have to run some kind of offense to where it was like a motion offense, where it wasn't just all perimeter oriented. Because, like you said, in this day and age, in any day and age in basketball, if you're not making shots, you got to find another way to score. So, I mean, you got to be able to go to the basket, whether it be off a drive or if you have a post player, either one, but you have to be able to score inside.
I tend to equate, and I've said this a couple of times on my broadcast about how if your shot's not falling, you have to find another way to be able to score. If you can't find another way, you're going to lag behind, you're going to stay behind, and you're not going to be, successful. And that goes for teams, programs, and so on and so forth. I kind of equate it to a pitcher. If you cannot figure out how to, if you don't have your fastball, your curveball and such, you have to find ways to be able to get through a game, because you're not going to have your ace stuff every single time out. And I think teams like yourself from, Seymour and other teams who find ways to score beyond just their strength, because if they can work on their weaknesses and do that well later in the season, that's a team that's dangerous.
Right. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. The equating it to the baseball thing is 100% spot on. And I also tell the kids, especially against the zone, if you're playing against the zone, you're going to get a 3 anytime down the court if you want. You know what I mean? So don't take that quick 3. Try and hit the gaps, penetrate a little bit, get into the seams. And we do have kids that, can score in multiple ways this year. You know what I mean? So like a kid, like I said to the Republican about Dion, he, if you leave him open, he's going to make a shot, obviously. But he has that second gear to the hoop where, it's not seen in a lot of players. And Kyle has that too. If you can hit that three, it's going to make the player have to, the defending player have to obviously come and guard you. So then that even opens up going to the basket even more. You know what I mean? If they have to lay off of you, then especially in the zone, then you're going to have to hit some shots then. But we're lucky enough to have kids that can, right now kind of score in multiple different ways.
Well, and also too, when you're going up against a zone, you're going to have an opportunity to be able. It's almost like they're kind of saying, "All right, we're giving you the three, but if you don't bite for that, because they're thinking, okay, if you're going to miss, you're not going to make every three you shoot. But if you don't bite on that and kind of work and stay within your game plan and don't get away from that, that's the strength right there. Because now it's because again, these are young kids who, if they have an open three, a lot of them are going to take it. But it takes the fortitude and the strength, both psychologically and also physically to a certain degree, to stay within the game plan and know, okay, I'm not a very good 3-point shooter, but my buddy in the right low post can do his thing. Let me go to him instead of me chucking up a three.
Right. And that also speaks to the type of team that you have as far as young or older team. Like we have a bunch of seniors this year, so they get it. They understand. But I've had younger teams that kind of do exactly what you just said. I'm going to jack up some threes because I'm open. They don't understand that. Well, I'm going to make 2 passes, and if it comes back to me, I'm probably be open again if we swing the ball enough against the zone. So let's go inside first, then I'll get it back. So it also speaks to the type of team you have as far as if they've been around, done it all, been playing in, a certain amount of varsity games already. So they know that, they have that court sense, and we have that right now. So that's good.
Now, there isn't a shot clock as far as Connecticut is concerned, and I've always thought that there should be one because I think it would help the development of high school basketball for both the men, the boys and the girls as well when they go up to college. But is there a certain amount of passes that you would like to see your team when they're on offense try to do? Because I know just like, I go back to baseball, if you got to, if you're trying to do a pickoff, more than 2 throws is way too much. Is there too many passes involved as far as the offense is concerned?
We don't ever put that in because you don't want to discourage a good shot. Like I said, the only kind of principles that I have are you don't want to shoot a quick 3 against the zone unless you're wide open because you're going to get another 3. The thing that I kind of preach more is don't take needless dribbles. So not really the passing thing, but the ball shouldn't be hitting the floor unless you're going to the hoop or, if you're out in transition, because all that does is get the defense to be able to stay in front of you and not really have to react. So yeah, more passing is going to get the defense to react, and that's good, and maybe get them out of position. But I don't have a set number of passes where they have to make before they get a shot. We just really have been looking to kind of get out in transition and get some deflections, get some steals, have our defense lead to our offense because we do like to get up and down the court. So I mean, in that aspect of offense, so not really passing limits, but just want to get out and run.
That's interesting. I've mentioned that to a couple of coaches off my podcast, and I haven't heard the dribbling aspect. So I think that's pretty interesting, Coach. Now looking at kind of what is, and I'm hoping to be a remainder of the season for Seymour and for all of high school sports itself, what can we expect from Seymour the rest of the way?
I mean, it sounds cliche, but we're going to compete every game we play. I mean, I think we've done that for the last, I like to say since I've been there, but even the last 4 or 5 years, even so, where, they're not worried about the jersey that we're playing against. They just go out and play and worry about our own jersey. I always instill them that if we play the way we're supposed to play and do the things we're supposed to do, it doesn't matter who you're playing. But as far as the year goes on, I would like to, keep this moving as best as we can. I mean, if we play our game, I don't see any reason why we can't, maintain this success and just keep going forward. I just, like you said before that question started, I just hope we get that chance to do that. And all these other teams that aren't getting that chance are able to get back healthy and be able to get back on the court, because I can see what it means to these kids. I can see what it means to St. Paul when we played them, how into that game they were. Derby, how into that game they were. Our kids, how into the game they were. Even just the fans. I've had we in Seymour, our juniors and seniors get to have 2 people come to the games. Excuse me. So even the fans are like, you don't even understand. I think I wanted to see these games more than my kid. And that's probably not true, but at the same time, it's just everybody needed it. And I'm just glad that it's here, and I just hope it stays. And if it does stay, I think we have a pretty solid team that can compete against just about anybody.
When was the last time that Seymour was ranked as far as amongst Game Time or the polls? When was that?
Probably never. I think we had to be pretty close. I'd say about 3 years ago, I went to the quarterfinals, and I had the Crawford twins, or brothers. We had to be pretty close then, especially towards the end where we went to the quarterfinals. But it's been a while. Maybe I'm getting old. In my sophomore year, we won the Housatonic title championship, and we were 17-5. So we probably were ranked that year or close to it. So that was 1993. Mm-hmm. So it's been a long time.
Because the reason why I say that is because if Seymour continues to win, yep, because of this, I know each voter has a different logic and theory, and I respect it. But I just think that if Seymour continues to win, and the wins that they have, when you look at, a college stat that I even told you about, Ken Pom, yep. I mean, prime example, St. Paul beating Naugatuck, and how that looks even better for you guys. I would think that towards the middle or even towards the end of the season, if you guys continue to play well, that I could envision you, I think there could be an argument made, Coach, that you guys could be somewhere in that ranking amongst at least in the top 10, if not top 15.
Yeah, I mean, you know what, that would be great. That would be nice, but it's not something that we even think about, to be honest with you. I've ever even thought about. Like I said, this is just a great group of kids, and I'm just so thankful that they're getting a chance to play, and they're playing well, because we all knew like what we had as far as the type of kids that we have and the talent level. So to be able to see them play and compete and so far play well, and I hope it does continue. Whether we go 12-0, whether we go 6-6, whether we go play 7 games or 4-3, this is one of my favorite groups. And whatever happens, I'm going to miss them next year so much, the senior class. And the kids that are coming back are just a great group of kids as well for next year. But rankings, that would be great, but it doesn't affect us one way or the other. We just want to play, and we just want to, want the kids to have some fun too, because they've had a rough year as everyone has. So, I mean, just to be able to be back on the court is good enough for me. Rankings, they are what they are.
Well, I think, perfect scenario. You guys win your division, you win the NVL, you're ranked in the top 15. Seniors that are sent off being remembered for having what was a year, and they're going to be remembered forever.
I mean, even like that team I had just spoken about, the quarterfinal team, they, they'll say things on Facebook and text, like, 3 year ago things, and show me the pictures and we played Ansonia, and we sold out the middle school in the second round of the state tournament. It just so happened that 2 NVL teams met because Ansonia knocked off the number 1 seed. And then we had beaten one of the teams way up north, and then they had to come to the middle school for a second round game, and it was, packed. So that, yes, what you're saying about sending kids off with memories that they're never going to forget, that was a memory. Like I said, I get texts all the time from them still to this day that, well, it's 3 years ago, Coach, that we had this, or, Adam Frashino was a kid on that team. He just sent me something the other day about a senior night win that they had. So, I mean, it would definitely send them away with some memories, and speaking of memories, Perkins is 5 points away from 1,000. So, I mean, that's something that these kids, are all can't wait to see happen, hopefully for him, and that'll be a memory for all of them, not just him.
And I'm going to be really happy for him when he does hit that 1,000 point. And I think he's going to go well over that. I've had him on the podcast when I first started way back in March. And although he was pretty shy when I had him on, very nice kid, very genuine, and seemed like he just give me the basketball. I just want to go play. That's all.
No, he's like that. He's a very shy kid, and he appreciates all you do for us as my whole team and myself included. We appreciate, all the publicity you give and all this nice things you always say about our program.
I really appreciate that, Coach. I really do. Now, I just have one more question for you. And again, I appreciate you coming on. You mentioned about the texts that you've had from people, from the program in the past and such. Yep. I'm sure they are ecstatic seeing the early, success, but also seeing what you guys did against St. Paul, what St. Paul did to Naugatuck. We've alluded to that quite a few times. Has there been any talk? I'm sure you're saying, guys, let's just keep it one game at a time. We can't go too far ahead, but you could see the excitement. I can see that there's so much potential to really do something special here.
Yeah, my current team and my former kids were, after every game they're texting me before the games, Coach, send me the link, because what really kind of stinks is that obviously there can't be fans. That stinks for you guys too, but those kids always come out. That's the one thing that I've noticed, a little off topic, but wins and losses, rankings, all that kind of stuff. The one thing I've always preached my years here was that we are a family, and we have like a family environment. Some of the kids that are older now, like in their 20s, I've seen out recently, like we meet up and go do things or go to dinner, things like that. So that to me is the biggest prideful moment of me as a coach, is that the bonds that we've had, and the bonds that we've been able to form from years, whether they played 10 years ago for me, 5 years ago for me, that they all know each other pretty much. You know what I mean? So that's an amazing thing. And that's what I really do, state championship. Yeah, that'd be great. but to me, that is more important. Like the memories that they have, that we all still stay in touch. To me, that's really cool.
And it's huge too, because you got to think about it. While it's great to be able to have success and be able to play in high school and such, not everybody can play in college, and a very small percentage, less than 1%, can play in the pros. I mean, look what happened with Mustafa at Sacred Heart. He was great there. He had some great times at Auburn, then St. John's, and then it's been difficult. And he was a star here, so that just goes to show how difficult it is. But I think it's great that you keep it such to a family atmosphere, because you see the bigger picture, because you prepare these young men for when they go to their next career, wherever that is, and they have a family, they have kids, then they come back to Seymour and they say, Coach, thank you so much. This is my family. That must make you so happy.
Oh, very, very, very happy. Yes. Like I said, that, we've had pasta parties at my house. We not now, that's kind of stinks though, because of the quarantine issues, but like I said, the fact that they all know each other too, like they'll years apart, they know each other. So, and they want to come to games, they want to help out at practice, whatever. And the group this year, they know players that have had in the past that were, Dion gave credit the other day in the article on the Republican to Jalen Crawford, for just being his like mentor, because he was a senior. When Jalen was a senior, Dion was a freshman. So they're just humble kids, and they understand what we're trying to do as a program and a school in general, not just the basketball team.
That's great to hear. And I actually didn't even see that part, and I must have missed it when I was reading the article. But again, it just goes to show another piece as far as Dion is concerned. I know we've talked him up a lot, but I think he deserves a lot of it, because I know a lot of the talk, and I feel like this is just my opinion. I know we're going a little off subject here, but as far as Dion is concerned, I don't hear his name mentioned as much when I hear about the top players, even going back to last year. I kept telling people, like, there's this kid in Seymour, Deion Perkins. I get maybe some of the competition maybe is not to the level of like the CCC and the FCAC, but the kid produces so much. Just give him a look, give him 5 minutes. He'll impress you.
Well, I think sometimes we tend to look at and focus on the bigger schools, or maybe the schools that are winning 15, 16, 17 games. And, the fact is, like you said, we ran off 3 in a row at the end of the year, made the tournament, and he was obviously the catalyst for that. The kid averaged 26 points per game. So, he is unquestionably one of the best players in the state. I'd have to see. I don't get to see a lot of other games besides the NVL, but we have some pretty darn good stars in our league, and he's right up at the top of the list in our league. So, for my money, let's put it this way, I wouldn't trade him for anybody.
That says a lot right there, Coach, and we'll end it right there. I really do appreciate you coming on, Coach. I wish you nothing but the best of luck the rest of the season, tomorrow with Oxford, and give Dion my best wishes and congratulations, because I know he'll get over that 5 points in probably 2 minutes. If not,
hopefully, knock on wood. But I appreciate, like I said, you having me on and everything you do for us.
No problem, Coach. Hopefully I could see you guys in the future, either during the regular season, or if we have the opportunity to do the NVL tournament, if it's allowed and such, and we're allowed to. I hope to see Seymour there and be able to do a game.
Great. Thanks again.
No problem. I'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent, and I'm on a journey to find them all. Have a good one, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.